Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Season 3, Episode 1 of Castlevania. So, yeah, uh, it's been quite a while since Season 2. I finished Season 2 reactions to Castlevania in January of last year, so like a year and a half. A year and a half's worth of time, and this series had come out a little bit ago, and I'd been really excited to get to it. Like, yeah, there's plenty of other shows that I waited longer to get to, but this is one that just continuously impressed me in its first two seasons. Now, just as a reminder, here's where I stand with Castlevania series. I had played it growing up, but I was never like hugely into it. It was never like as much my cup of tea as other game series like Mega Man or whatnot, Legend of Zelda. But I had played a couple of the games, and like I know certain references and stuff. I know certain like game elements, um, all of that jazz. And I generally know things about like the story of Dracula and all that because I've seen and read and played multiple things with Dracula as the main focus throughout the years. um so when I went into this originally, it's like, yeah, I knew the gist of a lot of it, but there's also a lot of it I didn't know or didn't remember. Like, just as a reminder, when I first went into this, I had no idea who Sypha Belnades was, and she's my favorite character now. But yeah, I didn't know who she was. Either again, having forgotten, or just didn't know based on which game she was from. I don't even remember that. But like I knew the entire thing with Dracula's like backstory. I knew about Alucard, all that. I knew about the various Belmont family members, uh, the vampire killer, all of that kind of jazz. But there was a lot I didn't know, and there were a lot of things that were definitely surprises to me. Um, but the series definitely did impress me. The first season was 4 episodes, second was 8, and now this third one is 10. So it's not continuing the trend of doubling the episodes each time. So it's like we didn't get like 16 episodes this time. But we got 10, and I think that's still fair. This series doesn't really need like a lot of episodes per season. It really doesn't. Having 10 episodes is quite a bit, and that kind of implies that there's going to be a lot happening. But I can see that considering we have a lot of parties to follow. Because we have our main party, which is at the moment uh, Trevor Belmont and Sypha. They're traveling together, very much having fallen for each other. Alucard is meanwhile at Castle Dracula, kind of having taken over the place. Um, and Dracula is dead. We have our new villain, Carmilla, who was introduced in season 2 and definitely was trying to usurp Dracula the entire time. But now that Dracula is dead, she's kind of taken over as the main villain. And she has the one of the two human. There were like the two human servants of Dracula. I cannot remember their names. One of them was he was like this uh life smith kind of guy. Like he could bring the dead back and like imbue monsters with life and shit like that. He had this little like undead pug. I can't remember his name for the life of me, but yeah, he's kind of being forced into servitude by Carmilla. And then there's this other guy who has a history of servitude, who has a history of slavery, who has kind of gone off on his own because Dracula threw him through a portal. Um, so it's like there's quite a few parties we're following. And I already know there are new characters being introduced because I had seen one of the trailers at least. I don't know how many there are. And I had seen like an advertising like poster kind of thing. Um, so it's like I know there's some new characters. I don't know what their deal is, but I think at least a couple of them are serving Carmilla. Um, so it's going to be interesting to see what they're going to do with this with Carmilla as the new main villain because it's Castlevania, and when you think of Castlevania and you think of the main villain, yeah, you think of Dracula. So it was very surprising when he did die last season. But again, Carmilla, from what I remember, was a pretty good secondary antagonist anyway, and now as the main one, I think she'll do well. I think she'll be a good villain. It's just I'm wondering exactly where they're going to take this. Like, what are they going to do with it? I assume Alucard and Trevor and Cypher are going to come back together, um, and I assume that we're going to get to see more awesome battles and shit. Probably some more interesting demons as well. I just don't know where this is going to go overall. Because again, you think Dracula would be Endgame, but no, clearly not. um, so yeah, I'm very excited to see what they do with season three, and yeah, I have faith that it's going to be good. I mean, the first two seasons were pretty damn great, so I have no reason to believe otherwise with this one. Um, but like I said, I know nothing about this one like at all. Like even with the advertising and the trailer and stuff, it's like I don't even remember much of what I saw in it, which was intentional. I tried to forget about it as much as I could because I just didn't want to lock that in my mind. So it's like I'm glad I don't know pretty much anything going into this, but it's like it's going to be interesting. It's going to be one hell of a ride. So, that being said, we're just going to get this started. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Just after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in today, and I will see you at the reaction. Okay, we are back and we'll begin with spoilers in three, two, one, now. Okay, so I looked it up. I looked it up after, well, in between. Um, Also, I missed Jason Isaacs somehow. He was the judge. Jason Isaacs he's great. Like, he's been in a lot of things. And it's like the first thing I knew him from, like, actively, was was Harry Potter. He was Lucius Malfoy in Harry Potter. But I've heard him like do voice acting shit and all ever since then, and he's really good, and he has a really great range. Like seriously, Jason Isaacs is a really highly talented actor. But beyond that, I was wondering who Bill Nye played. He was Saint Germain. He was the guy I was wondering about at the fruit stall. Um, yeah, that's amazing. I didn't even realize. It's like going back to listen, I'll probably be able to hear it, but yeah, I love Bill Nye. He would I would consider him one of my favorite actors, honestly. Um, and usually I could recognize his voice, but it's just I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't expecting it. So, um, but yeah, he's been in all kinds of things, all kinds of shit. Like just off the very top of my head, of course, I think of him as Davy Jones from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. He was in the Vincent Van Gogh episode of Doctor Who. He's been in just so much, and it's like I just have always loved him as an actor. He was also in the Underworld movies, wasn't he? I think he was in the Underworld movies. I think he was the head vampire in that. It's been a long ass time since I've seen those, and honestly, I was never big into them. But I believe so. I believe he was. I think he was actually the father of the main girl. If I'm not mistaken. Um, which I mean, yeah, it's like he's kind of gotten involved in vampire like stuff before, so it's like it's not like a surprise he would do something like Castlevania. So yeah. Either way. So yeah, this first episode was setting up a lot of things, and we definitely covered all our bases going between the different parties. So Trevor and Sypha are just kind of on the road, going from town to town, um, killing demons along the way, and just basically just going around, just traveling, nomadic like. um, so we see them just kill a bunch of demons. Trevor doing so barehanded. I swear he hasn't done like kill demons barehanded before in the series. Usually he does use his weaponry. So it's like really interesting to see him do that. Especially just because when he started fighting the demon barehanded, I just got reminded of that part in season 2 where where they're confronting Dracula and stuff, and he starts trying to punch Dracula, and Dracula's just like, "Oh, you must be the Belmont." just I always found that really funny, and people have actually memed it a little bit. So it's like, yeah, I just remembered that instantly, and it's like, yeah, you need to go get your whip. But no, he actually managed to do it. It's like, holy hell, dude. Um, and Sypha using her magic, which she's definitely improved even more on. Um, but they get to this town, and it seems like a really interesting place. It's run by the judge, which, as Sypha kind of exposited to Trevor and the audience, who might not automatically know, in a lot of times back in a lot of like towns and whatnot back then, a judge was the leader of the town. Um, that's just kind of how the political system worked a lot of times back then. Not always, not every town was like that, but yeah. Um, and he seemed like a pretty cool guy. He seemed okay. He seemed very welcoming and all. Not like overly friendly, but not like mean or anything. Not definitely not unwelcoming by any means. Um, Saint Germain was there. Don't know what his deal is yet. He seems to be really interesting in regards to his money situation. I don't know what exactly is going on there, but I don't know if he's just like greedy with his money or if he's just being really eccentric. I don't know. We'll have to see. Um and then there were the religious monks, basically, you could say. And they were really weird. Like there was something really off about them, and I think that they're going to be a notable early fight, maybe with Trevor and Sypha, because something about them, it's like they were basically saying that it almost seemed like they were saying they wished Dracula was still alive, and that they seemed like they were upset with whoever killed Dracula. So it's like, okay, something weird is going on here. But even the judge acknowledged that they were being fucking weird. So hey. um Meanwhile, while all that's going on, Alucard is back at Castle Dracula, lonely as fuck. He's having some good food. He's going fishing. He's picking berries and veggies and shit, and he's eating well. Has some good wine left over. The thing with him is just he's just lonely as fuck. He's just he is so starved for companionship after only a month, and it's like, dude, like, damn, he would not survive in this pandemic. Oh, that's funny to me. That's really funny. But seriously, I kind of feel bad for him. Um, and we know that they're going to reunite at some point soon. It's just going to be a matter of how and when. Meanwhile, we see Carmilla returning to her castle, which we didn't get to see a lot of in season 2. We only got a brief glimpse of it when we learned about her backstory. Because I don't remember like the exact details, but she was with another guy who was kind of like her. I don't know if he was her husband or not, but something like that. But she grew sick of him basically and killed him. Um, and kind of took over on her own. There was always kind of like this feminazi kind of ideology with her, where it's like, oh, she's like overly exaggerated, overzealous kind of feminist ideology, where it's like, oh, men kind of just are terrible and always suck and are just shit. So it's like, let's just have women rule everything, and that's kind of always what she seemed like. And I'm saying this from like a feminist perspective. I'm a feminist, so it's like, um, it's just she's the more extremist kind, and that's always kind of what she came across as, Carmilla. So it's like it makes sense that when she gets back to her castle, her sisters are all like, yeah, she has all the sisters. They're like all of her associates are female. And so it's like, yeah, that makes too much sense. The sisters themselves, it's like it's hard to get a read on their characters so far. They seem very loyal to her, but at the same time, it's just hard to say right now. They don't seem to have too much like notable personality yet either. Like the little like red-haired one, I based on her look and everything when I saw her in the advertising, I thought she was going to be a lot more high energy. But she just doesn't seem to be, at least not yet. They all kind of seem like they're just very controlled and very like intelligent, very smart and everything, but very controlled, very not emotionless, but just collected all the time. You know? So I'm definitely interested to see what more they do there. But they have the one dude who I think is Isaac. I'm not 100% sure on that though. Um, but he's still kind of enslaved by Carmelo. They throw him in the dungeon, give him moldy bread, throw ice cold water over him, putting his body into physical shock, which, by the way, I've had that happen. Like, no joke, I've had ice cold water thrown over me as a prank, admittedly, by friends. But it's not something you should ever do to someone, especially if they're already like physically like injured or just not in good physical condition generally. You should never do that because it can put the body into shock and can do some really nasty things to a person. Um, Especially if it's already cold. If it's already really cold out and you do that to someone, that's like it's not good. If you're more prepared for it, then you can usually handle it. Like when people were doing the ice bucket challenge kind of thing. It's like they were prepared for it. They knew what to do to handle it and everything. They had like blankets and towels and shit nearby to warm them up and all. It's like, yeah, it's like in those situations, sure. Like when you're prepared to handle it and everything. But it's like if someone's not expecting it, not prepared for it, especially if they're completely clothed, it's like the cold water will be stuck to the clothes and will be like matted against the body. Luckily, he was naked here. But yeah, if he were clothed at the time, that would be even more hell, just because it would be continuously on him, just from the clothing and all. But yeah, that would definitely put his body into shock at that point, and could be very dangerous. But Carmilla wants him alive because he's a Forge Master, so she's not going to do anything that will kill him, but she will make his life hell just because she can. So we see that that Carmilla's army and everything has had trouble getting back there due to the humans attacking and shit. They've lost their horses and all. So it's like, yeah, they're not having the easy like life here, and I actually appreciate that. I like seeing the villains struggle for multiple reasons. One, because it's just always fun to see terrible villains struggle. It's just always this kind of sense of just enjoyment watching terrible villains like this have to go through shit like that. It's just it's a nice feeling, because you know how terrible and shitty they are. You want them to get their comeuppance, so it's like seeing them struggle like that. It's like, yes, struggle. um, But even more than that, it's just genuinely good writing because it'll allow the villains to become more vindictive, more angry, and this will allow them to, in a lot of ways, become more heinous in their actions. Um, allowing their villainy to build. It adds motivation in a way. It's the same kind of thing like if you do that to a hero character, them going through all these struggles, it's like you want to see them surpass this and go into having this big victory afterwards. And when they do have it, it's so cathartic. It's like after everything they've gone through, they survive, they win, all of that jazz. And it's like it's the same kind of feeling, but with the villains, it's like you want to see them. You want your villains to be evil. Let's just put it that way. So when you see them struggle and everything like this, it builds up their villainy. It allows them to build up their villainy, make them more vindictive, make them more heinous and everything. Like I said, so it's like yeah, you want to see that because it'll make it so much sweeter when they're cut down. And I'm serious too. You want to see your villains be that much more evil because it makes for a good villain. You want villain characters to be as evil as possible, as long as it doesn't go into too cartoony, unless that's literally the point, which sometimes it is. Um, but I think they're doing well with Carmilla here. Um, she's I enjoy like seeing how kind of bitchy she is about having to struggle getting back there. It's like she's just so pissy about it. It's funny to me. Um, but then you see like the one Miranda, I believe it was, gave her the virgin's blood in the wine glass and everything, and then she's just like perks right up, and it's like you understand how fucked up that is. You get that, and you also but you also kind of laugh at it because it's funny the way it's delivered. And comedy was great in this episode. Like even beyond that, like Alucard talking to the dolls of Trevor and Sypha because he's so lonely and realizing how lonely he is, how crazy he's gone because of it. That was just that was fantastic. Especially because he was making fun of them in their mannerisms and stuff, but at the same time he was like mocking their accents and everything, and it's like, oh, that's great. But then there was also the humor with Trevor and the beer in the town. Um, just how insanely starved for beer he was, and it's like I like the one guy. It's like you killed this monster, you get a beer for free. It's like, oh, I love you. It's just like that was great. And then afterwards, when he's like, "Oh, this is better than sex," and Sypha freezes the beer, it's like that's such a waste of beer, but it was a really good joke. And this series has always been really good with humor. It's had some really damn good humor throughout. So I'm really glad that they're continuing that, but they're not shying away from the really great action and really great horror aspects of it either. They're balancing things really well. And so I'm glad to see that they're continuing to do so in this third season. So far, this was a good episode. I don't know where this is going to go exactly yet, but we're definitely setting some things up here with Carmilla and her sisters, with Trevor, Sypha, and the people of this village, and with Alucard just being bored out of his fucking gourd. We're setting things up. And when it comes to a head, it's going to be glorious. At least I hope so. um, but tell me in the comments below what you thought of this first episode of Castlevania Season 3, and thank you so much for tuning in. So for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.